Today I'm going to show you a breakfast dish, or maybe dinner, depending on who you are. I'm going to make savory French toast. Here we have a challah bread, which is a Jewish braided egg bread. It's got sesame seeds on it. It can come with many different kinds of seeds, but we like the sesame seed. And it's very distinctive as a bread in the grocery store. If you're a blind person, you can go to the grocery store and you'll feel a loaf that's really bumpy. It feels like little balls are coming off of the main body. That's your challah bread. I like it for French toast because it's got a nice, good, dense, but soft crumb that will absorb the egg really nicely. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna slice the challah, and I just take off the first nubbin because it makes for a flat surface, and I just get rid of that. Somebody chews on it later. And so now what I do is I do about an inch thick slice. And as a blind person, we're going to talk about knife handling right now. I'm cutting at an angle so the slice is long and thick instead of short and stubby. And this is very important with challah because the challah, like I said, it's got a lot of bumps on it. If I just cut it across the grain, I would get just a tiny end of a nubbin. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm going at an angle, and the angle I'm calculating is exactly the same angle. If you move your knife along, you'll see that the knife falls into the bumps, and that's the angle I'm following. And that gets you a nice, long piece of toast. But I'm not cutting in the bumps specifically. I'm just cutting about inch thick slices, nice and thick, dense slices. And so there we have our first slice. And I'm going to make 6 slices because Mike and I each eat about 3 slices of French toast. That one's a little thicker, but it's okay. And I'm just going across right now, and I'm cutting up my bread, and I'm laying it out on the cutting board. Okay, we have 4 slices now, and I'm just literally going across. And I like slicing this bread because, again, the angle is determined by the actual lumps in the bread. It's nice and straightforward. And because I'm cutting thick, I actually can get down fairly easily. I have a lot of trouble cutting a even slice, except when I'm cutting this thick. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slices now. So we have enough. And you'll see for the sighted audience that it's not 100% even, but it's close enough. It doesn't matter necessarily because they're all going to cook at their own pace. If this was a dish you were baking in the oven, you'd want to make them very consistent, but it doesn't really matter. Now I'm reaching into the drawer for a fork, and I'm going to pull my eggs over. And my recipe for French toast is 1 egg per slice of bread. I know that seems like a lot, but you'll see why. So I just crack the egg on the counter, just pull apart on the spot that's been mooshed on the counter, and put them into my bowl. So literally, I'm going to see if I can do that in camera for you. I'm going to do it on my cutting board. So I've got the egg in my hand between my 2 fingers, and I'm going to literally tap it on the cutting board till I hear a nice crack in there. And then I put my fingers in the area that's been smooshed, pull apart, and in goes the egg. That's 2 eggs. 2 taps. Not very hard, just firm enough to start breaking the egg. 3 eggs. That one cracked on the first tap. 4 eggs. 5. Oh, that one, the top fell off of the eggshell. And last egg. 6. All right, so there we have our eggs. gonna push that out of view there, okay. And I'm gonna just quickly stir these up really rapidly with a fork. I'm using a fork and I'm just breaking the yolks right now. I'm not gonna finish beating them yet. All right, so there are our eggs mixed up, and we're gonna get our next ingredient, which is cream. You can use milk for this, you can use anything you want, as long as it's got a little bit of fat content. I'm actually using half and half. And I don't measure it, I just kind of glug twice. You want a little bit of cream in there, you're adding some fat to the custard. And then I'm going to add some salt, and I'm going to add 2 pinches of salt, and I'm just sprinkling them over the top. And we are making a savory French toast today, so I'm going to add paprika. This is a lovely paprika that we bought at Smart & Final, so it's a huge, huge container of it. And Mike says I always overdo it, so I'm going to be very careful today. I'm going to do just a teaspoon's worth of paprika and in the dish. There you go. And I'm done with the paprika. I've got the salt, got the cream. Now I'm going to continue to whip this up into a nice mixed broth. And I'm just taking my fork and I'm lifting the fork and dragging it across. I'll do it really slowly. Lift the fork, down and drag, down and drag. But I'm going very quickly. That adds some egg, or some air to the egg. It breaks up the yolk. It mixes all the salt and, salt and paprika and egg and cream together. And I'm just moving around my entire container. Now let's talk about the container a little bit. This is a flat Corningware bowl with fairly high sides. You need something with high sides to hold the liquid, and I found that, you know, if I use a plate with high sides, it's never big enough for a slice of bread. So I am just using this Corningware dish. I'm going to show the camera view a little bit of what the eggs look like. I'm tilting it very dangerously here. I don't want it to spill on the counter. So I've mixed it up. I'm going to use my finger just to make sure there's no yolk. Running my fork through, and I've got resistance throughout, stirring it a little bit, and there we have our egg batter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 slices of bread into this egg batter. 1, and I put the slice in, and then I'm going to flip it over right away. And I'm going to put the second slice in, and I'm going to flip it over right away. There we go. And now I'm going to change our countertop a little bit, so we'll be back. And we're back. All right, so we just rearranged the countertop here completely, and I brought a portable griddle in, and I plugged in the portable griddle, and it's, let me describe this griddle to the blind viewers. It is a square, flat kind of pan area with another rectangular little sunken kind of tray on the left-hand side, and that sunken tray is meant for keeping things warm on the side while you're cooking, because of course you're not going to cook everything all at once. And then it's got a rectangular projection coming out for the power cord, and that power cord has a dial on it, and I can't tell if the dial is left or right, up and down. We're going to talk about the accessibility of this dial now. And so I'm going to try and move it, and I feel that it clicks at a certain point. That tells me that's the temperature it's at. So I'm going to try and put this at about medium, so midway of the dial. And the good news about that is medium is very accessible because all you have to do is midway, and it's on. And so just feeling the griddle. And the griddle has got heat coming off of it, so we're going to let it heat up a bit. And I'm about to flip over our 2 pieces of bread. They've been soaking this whole time. quite a long time, and that's because I really like my French toast gooey in the middle. So I just flip them over with my fingers in the bowl, and they're quite drenched with the egg whites right now. So I'm going to just clean my fingers because they're wet with gooey egg. So the other thing to know about my griddle is it's got a little hole in it in one of the corners. The bottom left-hand corner here has a hole, and underneath that is a little tray to trap the grease. So if you're cooking something really oily or greasy, there's that little tray. The hole is kind of tilted towards the hole, and all the grease pours down through that hole. So now I have a bit of butter. I'm just holding that in view here. I'm going to get a butter knife here, and I'm just going to take a rather large hunk of this butter, just about maybe a teaspoon's worth of butter. Doesn't really matter as long as I get butter on the pan, and I'm putting it at the far corner from that hole so that as it melts, it goes throughout the whole pan and kind of greases up the pan for us. And I'm going to take it actually and run it around the pan just to make sure that the whole pan gets buttered, because we want a nice lubricated surface. I also do this for the flavor. So we've got our nice soaked pats or pieces of bread here. The pat of butter has now melted on the griddle, and I'm going to just use my hands, take the piece of bread, and quickly toss it fat side down on the griddle. And this might not be hot enough because it didn't sizzle, but let's hope it works. And I'm going to put the other piece down. There we go. And again, my hands are all covered in egg, so I'm going to wash. So these are not sizzling at all. So I'm going to hopefully be turning the griddle up. It melted the butter, but it didn't sizzle the eggs. So I think I've got it on maximum heat now. And we just leave these pieces of bread lying on there to heat up. And we're going to take our spatula and we're going to just push them around a little bit, because even though we have butter on there, we don't want them sticking to the griddle. So I just nudge them a little bit, move them just slightly. So here we have the inaccessibility. So I think I turned the griddle down. So I just turned it all the way the other way now, because the heat coming off the griddle is much less. So it turns out clockwise on this dial is up, I hope. Let's see if we get more heat here soon. Yeah, we're getting much more heat now. So clockwise on this dial is up, and I have to remind myself every time which way is up, and it, you know, depending on how I have the grill oriented to myself, it could be counterclockwise because the thing could be on the other side. So I just have to fiddle with it. I've got my hand about 3 or 4 inches above the griddle, and I'm seeing how much heat's coming off the griddle that way. And we're still not getting any sound from these. Oh, we're starting to get a bit of sound. I'm just moving them again because they're starting to stick as the egg starts to cook. There we go. I just pushed my spatula underneath the edges of them there a little bit. Oh, and while those are cooking now, I'm going to put 2 more slices in our egg. Put one in, flip it over, put one in, flip it over. And there we go. We've started to get a bit of a sizzle from these now. So our pan was definitely too cool before. Oh yeah, here we go. Now I'm hoping you can hear that sizzle. It's still a very flat sizzle. There's a little bit of popping in it. I'm going to lift again just to make sure we don't stick. We got a bit of egg sticking on the pan already, but that's okay. There we go. Starting to hear that now a lot. Come on, French toast, cook up. And this would go much faster if I hadn't had that fussing with the dial. So a lot of kitchen appliances are very inaccessible to blind people. You know, we can't tell what the dial does, which direction is higher, which direction is lower. You know, even just a tactile arrow pointing in the direction I need to turn the dial would have helped a lot. But I also, if a recipe calls for me to go at, 150 degrees versus 200 degrees, I can't tell. There's no way for me to tell because there's no markings on the dial for me to feel. Of course, they're printed there, but that's useless to me. So now we're getting a little bit more popping, but it's still just sizzling. And I normally would do this on the stove top instead of on the griddle, but I wanted to have a nice clean area to show you and kind of point to, have everything in view of the camera. So that's why I'm using the griddle today. So we're hearing a little bit of crackling. I'm going to just move these again. There we go. Oh, see, there we go. We had a bit of a problem there, but that's all, it's fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip these. I took my spatula, it's a very large spatula. I put my hand on top of the French toast just to guide it, and I just turned it over. And I'm going to go again. I'm coming at it from the narrow end of the toast, not the wide end. Going as far under with the spatula as I can and flipping it over. And I hit the other piece, and so I'm just pushing it away. And now I'm just lightly checking the top of those. And the one closest to the camera is not quite as done as the one closest to me. So what I'm going to do is probably flip that one over again in a minute. But it's also going to cook much faster on this side because, of course, the griddle is much, much hotter. I'd say that the surface of the one closest to me is actually good enough and ready to go. And you'll notice that we had no sound effect whatsoever except for an initial hiss when we flipped those over. We're going to just move these again because we don't want them to stick. That raw egg does tend to stick a bit. There we go. As I move them, you'll notice we'll get a better sound as well. And so now they're cooking through. Now, this is the really tricky part. I like my French toast a little gooey and a little moist on the inside. Some people really like it like a hard scrambled egg on the inside. So it all depends on who's eating and what texture they want. Mike tends to like his a little harder. I tend to like mine a little moister. So I'm going to cook 2 of these all the way through for Mike, or 3 of these all the way through for Mike, and 3 of them to a moist, dense kind of texture for myself. And what the trick is, I've learned, is when I flip them over in the frying pan, I also flip the ones that are in the soaking bowl over so that they get more of the liquid in the pan, in the bowl on the other side. Okay, so these are almost silent. So I'm just going to flip this really quickly, the one closest to me, and it is done. So I'm putting it in the little warming divot at the far end. And I'm going to take the one that was furthest from me, flip it over again. So I have discovered that the side of the frying pan closest away from me is not hot enough, because the one that was closest to me is cooked through, the one that was furthest away from me is not cooked through on the other side at all. It's a little moist, it's a little still soft, it doesn't feel like a piece of toast to the finger. So I'm cooking it on this side of the pan. And you'll hear that there's some liquid definitely in there sizzling and popping. That's the water cells expanding. And we're going to wait till we hear, I'm pressing down with the flat of the spatula. We're going to wait till we hear less of that when I press the flat with the flat of the spatula. There, that's much less. So now I'm flipping it back over again. There we go. Pressing. Got a little bit of moisture coming out still there. And just literally just taking the flat of my spatula, putting down on the top and pressing just to hear what comes out. All right, so that one seems like it's done now. So I'm putting it in the heating tray there again. And we'll go for our next batch. And I always like to put extra butter on, so I'm just reaching for some butter here. Putting a nice big hunk of butter, again in the far corner. And you'll hear the pan is much hotter now because that butter sizzled immediately. Yeah, butter's completely gone now. And I'm going to take my piece of bread, again, fat side down, and put it right where I put the butter, and move it over. And the next piece, right where I put the butter, and move it around. And now we'll leave those cook for a minute. So there is a lot of different theories about making French toast, and some of those theories say that you should only soak it in the batter for 10 seconds per side or 30 seconds per side. I've seen a lot of different theories that say a lot of different things. I like mine to soak as long as they possibly can. So as soon as I can, I put my next batch of bread in, I flip it over, and then get it soaking, and then halfway through, when this batch is going to be ready to turn over on the griddle, I will flip the bread over again. So those pieces are cooking much faster. Now I have to remember where I put my spatula. Take this lid here and put it on these pieces that are already cooked to keep them warm. And I've lost my spatula. There it is. Okay. And so since these are quite much quieter, I'm going to pick them up and I'm going to reverse them. So I'm going to take the piece that was at the back and flip it onto where the piece that was at the front was. And I'm going to flip the front piece and leave it on the back. And there we go. And since I flipped these two, I'm going to flip the pieces in the remaining batter. So these are still a little moist on the top side, so we'll cook them up a little more and then flip them again. And every time I touch the egg, I go and wash my hands, because I hate that sensation of raw egg on my fingers. So now it's time to start pushing with the flat of the spatula. We're still getting quite a bit of sizzle when I do that. Moving them around the griddle a bit so they don't stick. Oh, there's a nice sizzle there. reverse the order a bit there, just spinning them around the griddle. Getting one at the hotter part, one at the cooler part. Literally, for the blind people, I'm literally just pushing the bread around the griddle, not picking it up, just pushing it. Okay. Flip the one piece over again. Oh yeah, that came out much nicer. Flipped that piece over again. And the way you'll tell if it's gooey on the inside is, of course, you could cook it till no sound at all comes out when you press with the spatula. And that's a nice solid cooked through, you know, hard scrambled egg versus a little bit of a runny scrambled egg. I love runny scrambled eggs. Still a little sis on that one. Okay, I'm going to just take my lid off of the pieces here that are warming on the side. And I'm going to, oh, that doesn't sound quite right yet. This one does though. So I'm going to pick up the one piece, put it in the warming drawer. And take the second piece now, because that's all I needed, was just another second. And we'll put our lid back on the warming drawer here. And we'll do our butter again. Using quite a big chunk of butter, because I found that the pan is getting a little eggy and a bit of a smoky smell here. And just tossing these last pieces of bread a bit in the egg batter, and on they go. And so we have a little bit of egg batter left, and in this house, any retired guide dogs will get this piece of egg, this little bit of batter. The working dog, no, because I don't want her to have a reaction to it and, you know, have an accident on the job, but the retired guide dogs, you know, they're going to be home. They can, you know, if they have an accident, they can just go outside. So we've got a little bit of egg batter left. Probably enough egg would have been in this one for another piece of toast, but we're not going to do another piece of toast. If we did, it would not be definitely as moist, and there would be nearly as much egg soaked into it, because there's really very little egg left in the bowl. 6 eggs was still enough. 5 would have not been enough. All right, so those stop sizzling really quickly. Pressing down, pressing down. I'm going to flip these now. There we go. And of course, the hotter our griddle gets, the faster these cook. And again, the far one cooked slower, so we're reversing the order, pushing them around, just making sure that I might have flipped these ones too quickly, but we can always flip them again. There's no problem with that. So as those last pieces are frying up, I'm going to grab a plate and show you the toast on a plate. Just lift Lifting our lid here. And we're going to take one piece. And I'm going to take one of the first batch. Put these on the plate here. This one, so there's our plate. And we'll give the third one there. And that is a nice order of French toast. Mike puts maple syrup on his, and I just put a little extra butter. Thank you for watching.